everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you guys are here for today's video. This is a very exciting one for me because we are going to be starting my reading vlog for Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the newest Hunger Games prequel book that is coming out in the middle of March, and I am so incredibly excited for this one. Probably my most anticipated book of 2025, at least of all the releases I know 100% are happening this year. I want to give a quick intro, talking about what we know about the book so far, and kind of some of my plans regarding this reading vlog now, because the book is actually not out yet. I'm filming this a little bit ahead of time. I did previously give some predictions of what I thought this book could possibly be about in my Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes reading vlog, because at the time we had the announcement that this book was coming out, that it was going to focus on the second quarter quell and the title of the book. But since then, we've gotten obviously a full summary of what this book is about, and it's pretty much 100% confirmed that Haymitch is going to be the main POV character for this book, following his story and his time before and after he is in the Hunger Games. I want to say really briefly that this video will contain spoilers, at the very least for the original 3 Hunger Games books, as well as stuff from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, although I don't really know how much relevance to this book the stuff that happens in that one necessarily will have. But if you have read the original trilogy, you know that a lot of the stuff that happened in Haymitch's Hunger Games has actually already been revealed to us as readers through some flashbacks that we get when Peeta and Katniss are watching footage of Haymitch participating in the Hunger Games during Catching Fire. So we know exactly how he won. We know the character Maisley, who is one of the other tributes from District 12 that Haymitch had an alliance with. We know about her death. And we know some kind of general things in terms of how the Capitol viewed Haymitch's victory and the way that they punished him for their perceived, disobedience or, embarrassment for the way that he won the Hunger Games. All of which are elements I'm pretty sure are going to be extrapolated on and talked about in Sunrise on the Reaping. It seems like, at least from what we know about the summary and things Suzanne Collins has said, this book is definitely going to focus a lot on propaganda. I think the theme of propaganda that has been talked about in relation to this book is probably most likely going to play out in the way that the Capitol maybe tries to manipulate Haymitch's win to seem like something that was actually something they had planned all along, as opposed to an act of rebellion on his part, kind of in a similar way that they do with Katniss, Peeta, and Nightlock berries. And also the overwhelming sense of emotion I get from the summary is one of loss and feeling beaten down, and how can you come back from seemingly unwinnable odds or finding hope when it seems like there's nothing left to fight for. I think this makes a lot of sense for a character like Haymitch, who I feel like, as what we've seen him in the original trilogy, he very much has an energy of there's nothing left to lose, so he is kind of willing to wallow in his own self-pity and sadness. And at the point we meet him, when he's being the mentor to Katniss and Peeta, he very much has given up all hope that change will ever come. So it's interesting to finally get this book to kind of get more perspective on how he ended up having that outlook in life. Anyway, I think I've talked enough in terms of my predictions with this book. Overall, I'm just kind of going in as blindly as I can, not really having too heavy expectations of what could possibly happen. I'm sure that no matter what, Suzanne Collins really can do no wrong. She hasn't steered me wrong with the other books in this series so far, and I'm just super excited to check this one out. I also wanted to mention beforehand that I'm definitely going to be going to one of the midnight releases for this book, and I'm working as best I can to get some form of a Lucy Gray cosplay ready for it. I don't think I'm going to have time for my wig to ship, but I'm working on sewing some aspects of her costume to wear to the event. But that is the plan for so far. Actually, right now I'm going to go ahead and call my local Barnes & Noble and try and figure out how I can get a spot for the midnight release. And then, yeah, probably the next time I see you will be once I have the book in hand. I'll be able to then get into reading it and give you my first update. Okay, apologies for my appearance. It rained today, and I honestly don't know why I even bother curling my hair or doing anything with it, because it's just gonna get super humid and frizzed up whenever it rains. Anyway, it's after work today, and I wanted to do my first update. I wanted to talk really briefly about the midnight release party that we went to. It was just so cute. We went to a new Barnes & Noble that had relatively recently opened up, maybe a little over a month ago, and it was so cute and also freaking huge. It's one of the ones that is 2 stories, It's also one of the Barnes & Nobles that has like a big movie and music section, and I'm pretty sure that the ones I have gone to in the past don't also usually have that area. So very exciting for all of the future trips that we're going to go to at this location. We played like some trivia and ended up meeting this like other millennial couple that was there. Pretty sure that we were collectively all like the oldest people at the event, which does make me feel a little awkward, but also really loving that all of the youths nowadays are respecting the classics and reading the Hunger Games. Also, me, my wife, and Elaine all dressed up. Well, mostly they did, and then I wore the top that I've been making for my very much work in progress Lucy Gray cosplay. But because they were in cosplay, we ended up winning this hat, which is so cool. I can't wait to rep this when we are out on the town. Also, for winning some of the trivia, we got sets of these little pins that also have the design from the book cover on them. But it's actually been like a full week since the midnight release party. We were gone this last weekend, so I wouldn't have been able to read anyway. But even before that, it just like took forever for my Barnes & Noble special edition of this book to ship. And I literally just got it like an hour ago when I got home from work. So I thought we could do a little quick unboxing of this. Haha. So here is my copy of the book. Nothing else like aesthetically is different about the books. As opposed to, I'm pretty sure the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had like a special colorway. This time around, they just did like the same design for like any special editions. It has the gold foiling that I'm pretty sure is standard on all of the books. And then I'm pretty sure at the end there is like an interview with Suzanne Collins. But now that I finally have a physical copy, I can get into reading it. Also, the audiobook was available through Hoopla, so I can also get that and start reading it via audio as well. That's actually probably what my plan is for the rest of the night. I have a lot of like cleaning up and like resetting the house from coming back from being away for the long weekend. So I want to do some like dishes and kind of like tidy things up, and I'll probably listen to the audiobook while I do that. But overall, I'm just so excited to finally get into this. So far, I haven't seen like any spoilers. The only thing I know, pretty much the only thing I know that is a good thing, is that Evria texted me and my wife and was like, you need to start reading this. So I'm very excited to now be able to jump into it. Okay, so it's been a couple days and I have made some decent progress in Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm currently about to start chapter 8, which is around the 100-page mark. I'm pretty sure this book has like exactly 400 pages, so that means I'm basically a fourth of the way through the book. And I am really enjoying it. The first couple chapters were very emotional, and the way like every other page for those first like 2 chapters, I was gasping or out loud saying, no, no, because of what was happening. I also was telling my wife that the like epigraph, I think that's what it's called, or epitaph of the book is really funny to me because there's like 3 parts and they're all really long. I feel like normally an epigraph is around like 1 or 2 sentences, but like Suzanne Collins was out here with her whole bibliography. Her work cited her further reading section, so the girls could not miss it. I think from what I have seen so far in this book, I know before the book came out, there was a lot of speculation on like what the title would be about. And I feel like from what I've gotten from the book so far, there was like a double meaning on the fact that Haymitch's birthday is Reaping Day. So the book literally starts on the sunrise of the reaping. But it's also about this like logical fallacy that just because something happens in the past, you assume that it will always happen in the future. And you can't really take everything for granted. And the expectation of the future being like the past kind of leads to complacency. And in the book, Haymitch's girlfriend, Lenore Dove, talks about how like maybe one day there will be a birthday of Haymitch's that won't also have a reaping, and that a refusal to like decouple expected things is a way for people in power to control the population from preventing anything changing out of the status quo. Also, I feel like throughout this book, we have seen the different ways that the Capitol uses the Hunger Games and manipulates perception for the purposes of propaganda. Like the entire way that Haymitch is reaped is actually a response to one of the selected tributes that was actually chosen by chance, running away and immediately getting killed by the peacekeepers. So to kind of like fill in that gap and not let the people in the Capitol or the other districts see that one of the potential tributes rebelled, they just kind of like select Haymitch because he was in like the wrong place at the wrong time. and then fabricate a version of the reaping where he is selected by chance. So obviously the people in District 12 know what happened, but all the other districts and the capital are completely none the wiser that the version of the reaping that they saw was manipulated. And I think that we're just going to see more and more of that as the book goes on. Just the different ways that the capital and the game makers will try to manipulate the way that the tributes are perceived to give like the intended effect that they want. And Haymitch is very much rebelling against that, which we kind of already knew from the part of his Hunger Games that we saw in Catching Fire. And we've also started to see that a little bit more here when he's talking to his mentors, who are Wiress and Mags. I was so excited to see them again. But from his conversation with them, he's very much of the expectation that him and the other District 12 tributes are not real contenders to win. So at the very least, they can try and formulate scenarios to show like the capital's incompetence and like kind of indirectly rebel against them. Going back to Mags and Wiress, I was just so excited to see them again. Honestly, all of the appearances of characters that we already know from the other books in the series have been really great. But with Wiress, it was very cool because her Hunger Games was the one that came directly before Haymitch's. And we also get a description of what the arena was like for the 49th Hunger Games and the way that she was able to manipulate things that resulted in her winning. We also have gotten a ton of Plutarch in this book, which is very interesting. I feel like the ages of all of the adult characters in the original Hunger Games is very like hard to pinpoint, and which only gets like compounded to be more confusing when you watch the like movie adaptations, where obviously the actors' ages are very different from the characters' ages. So I very much didn't expect Plutarch to be a character in this book, but seeing him has been really great, and I feel like I am getting a little bit of my desire for a Plutarch origin book fulfilled with his storyline in this. Just overall, I'm very excited to read more of this, based on how much I've been enjoying reading it so far. I'm really excited to get to the point when they finally get into the arena, because obviously from what we already know, the whole like theme of the 50th Hunger Game arena is things not being what they seem. It being this like beautiful meadow with a lot of like cute looking animals, but then pretty much everything is poisonous or deadly in kind of like unexpected ways. So I'm very excited to see like more details of that as we get into that section of the book. So that is my update for right now, and I will come back to you in the next couple days when I have more read in this book. Okay, so I'm going to do my makeup with you this morning. We are going out into the city to have lunch with some friends. So I thought I would do my makeup with you and talk about my most recent reading updates with my progress in reading Sunrise on the Reaping. I just finished chapter 20, so I think I'm around like 68% of the way through. I've now finished all of part 2, and I am in part 3, which started in chapter 19. I guess my overall thoughts for my reading experience so far, at least in the last third, has been that I am enjoying this, but definitely not as much as I thought I would. I feel a little bit like weirdly disconnected to the characters, which was definitely not the experience I thought I was going to have, because when I was reading like the first couple chapters, I was already like out loud saying, oh no, this is going to be so heartbreaking. And I was just like prepared for the book to really like emotionally wreck me. And while I have been a little sad about some of the deaths for the characters that we were learning about and like growing to care about, at the same time, it did really feel like we just didn't have enough time with them overall to really have like the full emotional weight of their characters' deaths. And while deaths like Luella's death early on, and then Wyatt's death definitely were sad, Wyatt's death not being on screen like kind of surprised me. I also feel like Maisie as a character, her relationship with Haymitch should have been more strongly developed earlier on. I guess maybe I had a false sense of how important she would be in the story, just because she was like one of the only other tributes that we knew about in her relationship with Haymitch being explained in Catching Fire. So I was a little bit shocked that for at least like 4 or 5 chapters in a row, she just didn't appear when Haymitch like first started branching out in the arena. And only in the last like chapter or so, we got to see her again and sort of explore more of her relationship with Haymitch and how she's kind of like transformed from this almost like bully, stuck-up girl that he knew back in District 12 to someone that he now considers a sister. But at the same time, the way that Haymitch is like not revealing anything that he has done in terms of the rebellion plot to her just kind of makes her still feel a little bit more on like the outside. And I guess I would have preferred if their relationship and friendship was developed a little bit more ahead of time. Like, it's just a bit interesting that only Haymitch, for some reason, was like really singled out as someone that the rebels could count on, when I feel like you would think they would maybe extend that a little bit more to the other members of District 12, especially with how volatile Maisily had been to the career tributes and like members of the Capitol. Okay, now I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I have been enjoying. I really, really like this setting of the arena, and I enjoy like all of the survival stuff that Haymitch is going through, which was one of like my favorite parts of reading the original Hunger Games, just seeing like how resourceful and smart Katniss was. And I feel like we are seeing a lot of that come through in Haymitch as well. I also like just this arena in particular, it being like incredibly beautiful and picturesque, but then like pretty much everything in it is poisonous or deadly. Just some of the visuals for the arena specifically, I feel like are going to be so cool when they finally translate that to the movie adaptation. I also have been enjoying the different ways that Suzanne Collins has been playing around with different ideas of propaganda. There's been a couple times in the book so far where we've seen like the truth be manipulated to best serve the Capitol's story. But we've also kind of seen Haymitch like turn that on its head and use it as a strategy to throw off suspicion by kind of playing up this rascal character that he establishes during the interviews. So if he does anything that maybe could come across as rebellious, he can just kind of like play it off as being a rascal, having this kind of like nonchalant bad boy image. I also was laughing at this one part when Plutarch is mentioning that back in the like before times, there was technology to create images and videos of people doing and saying things that they never did, and how this was something that almost like brought humanity to the point of destruction. And from Plutarch's perspective, he sees this as such a loss because he thinks it would help him like have a much easier time in getting all the footage he needs. Once again, Suzanne Collins really coming for all of the relevant like social commentary with the dangers of generative AI. And it's also just like funny to me because like, yeah, of course Plutarch would like AI art. That's kind of all the updates I have for right now. Since I'm pretty sure there's 27 chapters in this book, or 28, so I'm in the home stretch in terms of how much I have left to read. If you can see my bookmark placement, I think I only probably have around like a quarter left. So I'm hoping when I get home later today, I'll be able to buckle down and read the rest of this. And I'll probably come back to you tomorrow with my final update. Okay, so it's been like almost a full week since I last talked to you guys. Just had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that's prevented me from filming another update. But since then, I have now finished Sunrise on the Reaping. I wanted to start off by saying that I really, really enjoyed the epilogue. I thought it was so great to see everything kind of like come full circle through Haymitch's relationship with Katniss, knowing that she is the child of one of his like old childhood friends, and he always was kind of like aware of her when she was very young, and then seeing her like kind of harden and toughen up after his death in needing to take care of her family, and that resilience being something that Haymitch can really relate to Katniss for. I also really like the final mention of the geese. I feel like I definitely clocked in my mind early on that Lenore Dove cares for geese, and that Haymitch also ends up taking care of geese at the end of Mockingjay. But seeing them all be interconnected was very good. I also do kind of like the overall motif of Haymitch kind of being a proto-Katniss and being a explanation in what happens when the rebellion fails. Because there's a line earlier on when they basically are saying that there could be another person that comes along that's similar to Haymitch but has better luck, or that has an army behind them, which is basically what happens when Katniss is able to take over in leading the rebellion. And also just kind of Haymitch's respect and love for Katniss in that she was someone that was actually able to carry on the goal of the rebellion and living out Lenore's dream of being able to stop there being a sunrise on the Reaping. So I did really enjoy the very last section of this book. Now I wanted to move in and talk into like a general, non-spoiler final thoughts, as well as give my final rating for the book. I think I'm going to give this book 4 stars. I do think I might be slightly in the minority in not considering this book like an instant 5-star or 6-star. I've seen a lot of people say. I think my favorite part of this book was definitely the first section, and I do think a lot of my personal rating comes down to my own enjoyment level. I feel like this book is good, but it honestly might be my least favorite Hunger Games book, or maybe least favorite tied with Catching Fire. I think Catching Fire is the best movie, but the book, I feel like has a lot of stuff that honestly I'm glad they cut for the movie version. Anyway, I think the issue that I really have is just the fact that I don't really love Haymitch's narration. I honestly find him to be a little bland. I think a lot of people were very, very hyped for this book because they really love Haymitch's character and were so excited to see what his Hunger Games was going to be like. But I have never had that really passionate love for him as a character. And I think compared to the other like narrators of the Hunger Games books, Katniss is just like so interesting and does have like just such a strong presence. And I find her like personal growth and exploration throughout the original trilogy to be just very compelling. And then for Snow's book, he is just like a lot, and following his perspective is so wild. I can understand people not liking him as a character, but I feel like he's obviously supposed to be disliked, and the book is very much a villain origin story. But I feel like in terms of Haymitch, there's just like not as much for me to personally latch onto. I do also have to wonder though, if part of my disappointment is coming from the fact that this is the first Hunger Games book where I'm reading it before seeing the movie, which obviously is from the fact that the movie is not coming out until 2026. So maybe it's just the fact that I need to see this version of Haymitch in a movie to better appreciate his character. Although at the same time, even though I saw Ballad before I read the book version, I do kind of prefer some of the additional things that are in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes book to what they did in the movie version. So I don't know, I just feel like there's going to be this give and take regardless of if you read the book first or watch the movie first. But 4 stars is still a very good rating. I definitely really did enjoy this book. I've had a lot of fun already doing some discussions with my friends about what they thought of the book. There were definitely a lot of things in this book that I was not expecting to see, with all of the like other cameos from characters that we know before and seeing how they fit into this earlier timeline, that overall was just really, really enjoyable. So yes, very, very glad that I read this. My wife has not read it yet, but it's definitely high on the docket for her to eventually start. I have told her a lot of things that happen, but I'm really excited to get her reactions when she eventually reads this. So with that all said and done, we are now at the end of this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. Also consider sharing this video with someone else who you think would also enjoy it. It is a goal of mine in 2025 to finally reach 1,000 subscribers, so any help that I can get with that would be very much appreciated. Also, if you enjoyed this video and you haven't watched them yet, consider watching my other 2 Hunger Games reading vlogs, which I will have linked in the description, as well as probably somewhere on the screen. But with it all said and done, that is going to be it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!